everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. This is kind of an emergency episode because Kaylor's not here, we're at a different location, but we wanted to pump out a review of KeyForge. As usual, I have Corey to my left, I'm Brian, we've got John to my right, and we can splice in shots of Kaylor saying he doesn't know what he's doing. That's pretty much all he brings to the table for games like this. Truth be told, he hasn't played this game yet, so he doesn't have a review. So let's dive right in. Corey, talk about the pros of KeyForge.
The first pro for me that comes to mind right away might not be the pro that you're all thinking. I think a lot of you at home too, the pro to this game could be that each deck is unique with its own name on it, specific to just your deck. So anytime you go out and buy one of the small decks for 10 bucks, yeah, it is a pretty cheap price point to get introduced into the game too. For $10, it is completely unique from any other deck in the world. So I think that'll be a lot of people's pros, but the first pro that I wanted to touch up on is that the gameplay is so unique. So basically you've got these three houses that consist of, that make up each deck, and you have to choose one of the houses to play out on your turn. So I think that unique gameplay mechanism hasn't been seen before. I think it's real unique to any other game on the market, and I think that's the most fun for me while playing this game.
Yeah, I guess I would agree. We use the term unique a lot. So it's not like how Root is unique in that it's asymmetrical. This is unique in that so many of these mechanisms are easy to understand, but they haven't been put together. One of the key ways to go back and forth, no pun intended, you aren't really attacking each other's monsters. That's not the main objective of the game. There are no life points or nothing that you're directly combating against the other person. You're trying to race to build keys faster than them. So it adds a different dynamic. You're running a race more than head-to-head.
KeyForge.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
John, say words.
I guess my favorite part of this game is kind of like Corey said, the unique decks. I've kind of lucked out and got some decks that I find really enjoyable, like certain factions I feel play more a style of game I like I've got Dis and Sanctum, which are kind of like a control, well, Dis, Sanctum, and Shadow, all kind of control-y, but yet have some aggressive factors to them, so I think that's really cool. There's a lot of different cards that I have not seen, and that always adds some very interesting times to the games. Just seeing what other people have thrown into their unique decks and how they kind of play out, and if the randomness has created any very interesting combos between these decks is kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's a relief for me as somebody who really got into Pokemon, a little bit into Yu-Gi-Oh, that these games where it seems like it's a cash grab, the fact that you can't customize your deck. Right. It is what it is. Yep. So there's no meta, there's no decks that get published online that if you don't have these cards, you don't have a chance to win in a tournament. Which is another thing we can talk about is tournaments, how fun that's going to be. Yeah,
I mean, there seems to be a few different game types they've already talked about for tournament play already, which seem to be different than the standard formats that you'd be used to in other card games. I don't really know, I don't know if you guys know or not, but the research that I've done doesn't really scream out that it's going to be one way or another. I don't know if there's going to be a standard format like in a lot of games. I don't know if like in Yu-Gi-Oh they're going to have banned cards or certain banned factions in the future, or in like future sets if they come out with more houses, more unique houses, if they'll phase out some of the older houses. Not too sure how that's going to work yet. I kind of hope not. I hope they keep more of the LCG format where it's the more where you can just buy the deck and play with it infinitely. Yep. One thing I did want to say that I've done some research on, I've done watched some videos on interviews with Richard Garfield, the designer, and he said one thing that really struck a chord with me is that even if you were to buy a deck and play it a few times and it seems to be a real bad deck, or it's not playing the way you thought it should, you can actually keep playing it over and over again and get better and better with that deck to learn its play style, to learn its what makes it sing, and I find that to be real cool with this game too.
And I think the other kind of thing to go along with these tournaments is it seems they have this chain system, and I think as certain decks continue to do well, they will introduce like chain, I don't know if they're going to call it like chain handicapping or whatever, where a certain deck you'll have to start with so many chains, and basically that reduces your hand size, which effectively makes it harder maybe to get some of these big plays or big board states for these decks that are trending upwards versus decks that are not.
Right.
So I think that'll be a good balance to this game for competitive play.
Yeah, it balances the playing field. And you could have in this blind tournaments where here's your deck, and yep.
That is definitely one of the formats they've talked about is the sealed, where you just come and they, I can't remember if they said it was going to be like 1 or 2 decks, or maybe it varies based on where you go, and they just say, here, $10, you get a deck.
Yep.
Now just play and see how you do.
Have you guys heard of that format where it's like a dual deck format where you bring 2 of your favorite decks to the table, and when one of your decks loses, it's out of the tournament?
And then you keep going until both your decks are out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I find that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, very unique tournament style.
So much room. And one of the few cons, because we can transition to that, is that it is just 2 players. At least for me, I like doing games where there's more people involved, but this is just a back and a forth. I mean, you can't even do 2-on-2 or have 4 people, as it's strictly a 2-person game, and kind of bums me out a little bit because we have, I mean, normally we have 4 of us that are playing, so we can do 2 one-on-one matches. But I like getting more people involved. So any downsides you see?
I mean, no 2-headed giant yet, or any other format.
Just the way I look at the game, I think it'd be very difficult for them to come up with a way to do that well. Yeah. It just seems difficult. That's all right.
One of the other cons I've kind of noticed with this game so far is that, which isn't a too big of a con, but it's still present, is that they have an algorithm set up that prints off the decks and that spews out the different combinations. Some of the combinations work well together, some of them don't. I know real creature heavy decks or board wipe cards in a deck are real necessary at the moment. So if the algorithm kind of spit out a deck that didn't really have a whole lot of creatures or didn't have the necessary cards that people are talking are tournament worthy as of right now, I know that could be almost a waste of a purchase on that deck, essentially, unless you're just doing casual play, which it's completely fine. And it is only $10, so it's not like you're really losing a whole lot.
It's another huge pro.
Another huge pro. But that is a con that I did want to point out, is that just because you're going to the store and buying that deck doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be one of the better decks.
Yeah. John, anything you think that, at least initially, this game isn't excellent at?
No, so far so good. Kind of just with the deck thing, I've got a deck where there's a few cards in there that kind of have specific actions and they don't really fit with other cards in the deck that I got. Or maybe I'm missing something, but I don't know. That's the only con I've kind of seen, is some of the randomness kind of can be negative, I guess.
And then we've noticed one theme already, the House Sanctum. John, both of his decks that he uses has it. And it seems like it synergizes really well just with itself. So those decks, we expect to maybe start having some chains on it once that becomes normal.
They do seem very powerful. Or maybe it's just the house combos that we've seen them with. I don't know.
Yeah, like the 4 Horsemen that have come out for Sanctum is what's the hot item right now. They work real well and synergize well together. But there are, I would say, the majority of the houses are decent in their own way. I guess my least favorite houses so far are probably Brobner, and maybe that's the only one.
I like Church's Brobner. They worked really well. I guess it just probably depends what combos or what synergy ends up.
Brobnar without creatures
is probably not real weak.
Is pointless.
Yeah, very creature heavy.
But Logos and Sanctum are real strong. Dis have a couple cool things you can do as well.
And I love using Mars. Like, it's kind of the cutesy Mars, aliens, but they got a lot of equipment. They got a lot of creatures that synergize well, and then you can, at least in the deck I have, you can abduct the opponent's creatures that are damaged at all. So I love doing that, just kind of to mess with people. So let's give a review in terms of teachability for this. Corey, what do you think? Have you had to do much teaching in this game?
I've had to do a little bit of teaching. I've taught my brothers how to play not all 3 of them yet, but I've taught 2 of my brothers, and I've taught a few other people. It seems to I mean, the teaching of it, if you've played card games in the past that are kind of like this, like Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, the big ones, it'll come a little bit quicker to you. But I think the teachability is maybe medium, more in the mid, because it's almost like if you are used to those older card games and playing a specific way,
it's kind of a bit of a shift to get to this new, like, I'm not really quite sure like what the new best strategy is yet, because you don't really gain benefits from attacking your opponent or the creatures, or maybe it's good to limit them, but you're going for these, forging these keys and gaining amber, and
you only can ever use
some new balance you have to get used to.
Yeah, and 33% of your deck at one time. You can choose one house on your turn, and that's real hard to think of too. And part of the strategy is there's no decking out in this game, so you're not going to lose when your deck runs out. So part of the strategy might be, you know, choose this house to maybe discard some of the cards that aren't really synergizing with the rest of your hand at the moment, just to cycle through those cards faster and maybe combo off of other cards that you draw.
What about the thematic level of this? Corey, what do you think? High, medium themat?
I think it's high.
Yeah,
I think it's a high theme, which is real cool for a trading card game.
Yep.
Because a lot of the themes either come from, you know, some fantasy world that was made up, or with other trading card games in the past, maybe TV shows that already had a pre-written script. This is all fresh and new, and but each faction feels like their own unique thing.
And there are little texts on the bottom of some of the cards where it's like quoting a character that you don't even know who that is, but it's like tying in something so it has allusions to a world that is there, and it's a little flavor that makes it seem like it's part of something bigger, but you don't need to role play or get into an entire world. You just get to dip your toes into it, but the artwork is great with it, and it's just overall really well done.
Yeah.
So what do we think for an overall rating? 1 to 10?
So far, I think this could climb depending on which way they go, but I'm sitting at an 8.5 out of 10 at the moment. Real strong 8.5. It's real heavy with pros versus the cons so far as from what I've seen. Each house feels so different with the way it plays. When you open a deck, like Brian brought a couple of his decks even this morning, and there's still cards that I haven't seen, and I feel like I've seen a lot of different decks. So that's real cool too. So you know, that touch upon like replayability, that plays into my 8.5 out of 10 as well. I don't see this getting stale. And I just look forward to what else comes out for it.
Yeah, definitely high replayability. John, what's your overall rating, 1 to 10?
I'd probably start an 8 right now as well, similar to Corey. I mean, like you said, there's just a lot of pros of this game. I think there's a lot of promise and kind of ways they can expand it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do next. So.
And I am a little more optimistic on it. I'm going to go almost a 9 because I see the room for growth in this. I see how accessible this game is. It's cheap to get into. It's like $10 for a deck. Now the starter set, like we have the box for here, comes with all the extra bells and whistles that you need, the keys, the amber, the damage, all that stuff, which is nice, and it's $40 and they give you 4 decks. So it's totally worth it. But this game is super accessible for anybody. The QR codes that they have for the decks, if there's going to be some online aspect to it.
And don't actually accidentally show your QR codes anywhere, because people will steal and register your decks. Granted, that doesn't make much use for them, but I'm guessing there's going to be some online component. So
yeah, I guess that's something we didn't really talk about.
Other than just tracking your deck. So
yeah, there is talk that it's other than tracking your deck, there could be some online play with your unique deck too, scanning in your QR code online, which could be real cool as well. Something we've never seen before, something that maybe the technology never existed until now.
Yeah, we just got so much potential for this. I love it. My only worry is that I might get sucked in a little bit too much to it financially. I've only bought 2 decks, and so far I'm good with that. These guys have invested a little bit more, but they also play it more than I do. I'm excited if there are tournaments, especially a lot of experience level ranges. This game has so much room to grow, and it is living up to the expectations right now, and there's so much more that it can do. I think it's a buy. You need to have a decent crowd of people that you can be playing with, but it's very accessible to get into. It is very cost effective. All you need to do is have a desire or any sort of basis of playing card games with it.
Yeah.
And you should definitely buy a couple of decks and dive right in.
Yeah.
Any of you guys think anything else?
Nope.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think you even need friends to play this game. I think you can just
right.
go
buy a deck,
buy a couple
find
decks,
some-
and I think the community is in all cities will be
Yeah.
pretty strong with this one. Just given Richard Garfield's name on the box, I think a lot of game stores will be backing it for tournament play. So you don't necessarily need friends, and you probably don't.
Why
need
were
to-
you looking at me direct? You don't
I
necessarily
was looking
need
at John,
friends.
but-
You can go and make some new ones. So
and I don't think you need the starter box necessarily either. You can just go out and buy a couple decks for $20.
yeah, and get some tokens, use pennies or
Yeah.
coins or something
Yeah.
Not a
as
big deal.
markers. It's pretty simple to replace what's in here for other components
Yeah.
outside the decks.
So we love this game. We're going to cut this review short right here because we want to go play it some more. There's a chance we'll have another review on this once Kaler plays, and we'll get his perspective, and we're going to beat him down all the times that we play because, I mean, yeah, we're pretty good. So signing off here for Talking Cardboard. We hope you enjoyed this video. And remember, it is better to shovel your driveway after it snows than before it snows. Take care, guys.